Hi, I'm Cherie Cornick, and this video is on casting on in pattern. It connects particularly to a pattern that I've written for twisted stitch mitts, and these are the mitts. I've used it in this cast on because I wanted a very stretchy cast on. Look at how nicely that stretches without any binding. And the stitches and the cast on are very neat. They're not big. I have not done this over a larger needle, which would make my stitches here quite large. I've used the same needle that I'm going to use for this ribbing. And notice how it looks a little different. For example, this cast on is on a hat, and it is a typical long tail cast on all the way around. So I really want to get close on this. Can you see, although it's a dark color, it's hard to see, but can you see how this line kind of just goes on an angle on every stitch? It also has a tendency to roll a bit, and that's partly because in order to avoid bicolor pearls, the row that I did after the long tail cast on was a knit row. And you know, a long tail cast on is basically a knit row. And when you put another knit row next to it, it's going to roll up a bit. This, as compared to the cast on here, where I don't have a continuous line of those straight lines. Instead, I have some purl bumps. So I have a couple purl bumps, those straight lines that you saw in the other cast on, which was a knit cast on. And then I have some purl bumps, a knit long tail cast on. And then I have some straight lines that are right underneath the knit stitches, and then I have purl bumps, which are right underneath the purl stitches. So knit cast on where I have the knit stitches, purl cast on where I have the purl stitches. And it lays so nicely. Those purl cast ons recede right in very nicely with the purl columns, and the knit stitches are nice and forward right along with the knit stitches. So, but the key really is the elasticity, and I wish you could feel it because there is no indication of a bind at all. It goes onto my hand so easily. Goes around my wrist with no binding. So let's see how you do that. First of all, we start just as we would with a long tail cast on with a long tail, long enough for the amount that you need to cast on, and you kind of have to figure that out a little bit. I put a slingshot shape on my hands, just like I do for a long tail cast on. And I have a choice. I could either start with a slip knot, or I can just twist it. And that twist just keeps that little knot look out of the way, but it is the first stitch. So you know, with a long tail cast on, in the typical way, you go under the outside thumb thread, and you go over the inside finger thread and bring it through that, I'm going to show you here, bring it through that loop on your thumb. Bring it through, drop it off the thumb, and it becomes a stitch. One more time, I go under the outside thumb yarn over the inside finger yarn, through that thumb yarn loop, drop the thumb yarn off, and tighten it. As with any cast on, I don't want to be too close together, but in pattern, I don't have to be as concerned about this as I would if I were doing just a long tail knit cast on. And that's because I'm using two threads. I'm using the tail for the beginning part of it, and I'm using the ball yarn for the beginning of the purl ones. But I only want 2 knit stitches to begin with. So I count this either slip stitch or this twist as one of the stitches. And this is the second one, so I'm going to take that off. And now I want a purl stitch. So the purl stitch starts with the yarn that is over the finger. I go to the outside of the finger, right there. See if I can bring that up and show you. The outside of the finger, I go under the thumb yarn, and then I take that through the loop on my finger, and I slide it off. Let me show you that again. I go under the outside finger yarn, under the inside thumb yarn, down through the loop on my finger, and let the finger yarn slip off. Can you already see a difference here? Just keep this in mind as I do the next 2 knit stitches. I'm going under the outside thumb yarn, over the inside finger yarn, and down through the thumb loop. Drop it off, tighten it. Under the thumb yarn, over the inside finger yarn, down through that thumb loop, and tighten it. I'm going to do the purl ones again before we look at it. So now for the purl stitches, I'm going to come under the outside finger yarn, under the inside thumb yarn, and now down through that finger loop. Again, under the outside finger yarn, under the inside thumb yarn, down through the finger loop, slip it off, and tighten it. All right, now let's look at what we have. I'm going to zoom in here. It's hard to see on the first 2 stitches, but let's look at the next ones. You can see a definite purl bump with these 2 stitches. And here you have that same kind of angled yarn that we saw on the long tail cast on the hat. Those were the knit stitches. And here are 2 with purl bumps. Those are the purl stitches. So let me do it a few more times to show you. Since I ended with 2 purl stitches, I'm going to do 2 knit stitches. Under the outside thumb, over the finger, tighten it through. Outside thumb, over the finger, bring it down through that loop, tighten it. Now for the purl ones, which is a little different than you're used to, outside finger yarn, under the thumb yarn, down through the finger loop, and tighten. Under the outside finger, under the inside thumb, down through the finger loop, and tighten. That looks like it could have been just a little tighter there, but it will be fine. One more time with the knit. Under the thumb loop, on the outside thumb, over the inside finger, down through the thumb loop, and let it off. Under the outside thumb, over the inside finger, down through the thumb loop, and tighten. All right, so I had 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 purls, 2 knits. Now I have to have 2 purls. Under the outside finger yarn, under the inside thumb yarn, down through the finger loop, slide it off, and tighten. Under the outside finger, under the inside thumb, down through the finger loop, slip it off, and tighten. Now you might ask, well, actually, does it make, I went for the knit stitches, which I'm going to do the next ones. I went under the thumb, over the inside finger yarn, through the loop, down through the loop, and tighten. One more time. Under the outside, over the inside finger, down through the loop, and tighten. Well, would it make any difference then if when I do under the outside finger, if I went over the inside thumb, like I went over the inside finger, and then down through the loop? Would that make a difference? And yes, it does. What happens is, and it's hard to see here, what happens is the back leg of the stitch is forward, so it's not mounted correctly on your needle. So it makes a difference whether you go under or over that thumb yarn. So you were going under, let me back it out again so you can see my whole hand. Under the outside finger yarn, under the inside thumb yarn, down through the loop, and tighten. And that is, and I have 2 purls, 2 knits. See that you can tell that they're knits. 1 purl, and I need another purl. Now, something else that's important is that, and I started this with knits and I ended it with purls, with a purl. And that would be good if I were knitting in the round. For these mitts, I'm going to be knitting in the round. If I were knitting flat and I need to know what I want to start with and what I want to end with. Because if I'm knitting flat, I'm going to turn this over. And now it looks like, 2 knit stitches. So I would start this with knit 2, purl 2, because those 2 stitches look like purls. See the purl bumps? Knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. So if you're going to start, you want these 2 stitches, once you start your knitting, and that would be on the right side row, the first row is usually the right side row. If I want these 2 stitches to be purl stitches, then I start my cast on with knits. If I want these 2 stitches to be knit stitches, then I start my cast on with purls. If I'm knitting in the round, however, I've got 2 more needles, I've got 2 more needles attached here. And so I would have my purl 2, and then I would have the stitches here, and I have to make sure that I end over here with purl 2 because the next 2 stitches will be knit, and I'll be going just as I see them on this needle. I think one of the things I wanted to add is if you're doing your cast on for small dimension knitting like this mitt would be, and I'm going to do this on double points, then you may want to put all of your stitches on one needle and then transfer them to the 3 or 4 needles that you're going to use. Another something that I've done that works well for me is that I'll cast on the first needle about 4 to 6 more stitches than I want to stay on this needle. And then after I've gotten those cast on, I transfer them to another needle, point to point. So let's say I transfer these. I like to start all of my double point needles with knit stitches. That makes it gives me better tension and fewer ladders between the needles. So I transfer them to the second needle and then start casting on again. It makes it easier than trying to start this cast on right at the end and gives you a better tight connection between the 2 needles. So I hope you'll try using the long tail cast on in pattern for things like this pair of mitts, or for hats or any other gloves, anything that you need to be stretchy.